Good morning, Fellowship Hi-Crest fam. This is your Jumpstart for Monday, April 18th. And hey, our focal passage for today is Ephesians 5:21 through 33. And I am going to read actually verse 21, and then I'm going to skip down and read verses 32 through 33. This is a really familiar passage, and I'm going to talk us through it here in a second. It says in verse 21, "And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ." Then it jumps down into verse 32, and it finishes out the passage in verse 32 and 33 by saying this: "This is a great mystery, but it is an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one. So again, I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband." Now, this passage has been used for some crazy things. And if you were to read the entire passage, and then you were to read some of the things that have been taught in the church, that are still being taught in the church in some places, you would say, how did you get that from that? You know, I think that's a popular trend on TikTok or something like that, or Reels. How did you get that from that? And it comes from not reading the scriptures. He starts off, that first verse is so important. It says, "And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ." And so many times when this passage is used, it's directed at women in a really ungodly, uncaring, unloving way. And if you look at it, starting with verse 22, it says this: "For wives, this means," and it's three verses about what this means about submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. But then with verse 25, it says, "For husbands, this means," and the husband is given 7 verses of instructions about what that means. But then it gets to that key part that I read down below. In verse 32, it says, "This is a great mystery, but it is an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one." What it's saying is, doing this in a godly way, submitting to one another in a godly way out of reverence for Christ, is going to be hard. There's not going to be these clear rules all the time of how it looks, these definite things that you got to do this and you got to do this. It said it's a mystery. So how do we have all these hard-drawn ultimatums and you have to do this and you have to do this when the scriptures say it's a mystery? But we should work at it anyway. We shouldn't run from it. We shouldn't ignore it. We shouldn't try to change what it says. It's a mystery. We should work in this, and we should fight in that tension that sits there. But one thing for sure, Paul says, is each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. See, if we fight in that tension and we hold that tension there, and we realize that we don't have to have black and white, but there's a lot of gray in this, and we can still honor God and how we live in that gray area, I think it would reinterpret this passage for us, and we would be better reflections of what it says when it says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Continue to power, pour in, and spill out. Have a great day.